I was living in the Philippines, and I was captured by the Japanese. Now, what do you think the Japanese wanted with an 11-year-old boy? What?
Slave work.
What?
Slavery.
Slavery. That sounds good. But because I was an American citizen, I was put in the Japanese prison camp, along with my mother and my brother and my 2 sisters. And I stayed there for 3 years. Now, you guys, I know, you think right now that, boy, there's things in your life that are really not really good. They could be better. Maybe you'd be allowed to go to the movies more often than you are now, or, you know, cut school here and there and stuff like that. What you really need to do is spend about 3 years in a Japanese prisoner of war camp to find out what life can really be bad about. And then you would enjoy what you've got today. Everything in dark blue was the Japanese before World War II. In other words, they did all of these things in the 30s. In 1941, they hit Pearl Harbor, December 7th, and they hit the Philippines the same day. So all of this light blue stuff that you see here is stuff they won after they started World War II. It took us 2 years for the Americans to actually stop them from expanding and start them back, to force them back into their own homeland. And that was, as far as the Far Eastern Theater was concerned, that were the battles that we fought down in this area. All during that time, I was in the prison camp. And I guess you want to know a little bit about the books that I've written about my father, who is this gentleman right here. He's the one he flew these airplanes, but he also converted them over into low-level skip bombers. They court-martialed him twice, but he was able to prove to the court-martial board that what he was doing was absolutely correct. They claimed, the engineers in the Air Force claimed that he was destroying government property in the face of the enemy when he would tear these airplanes apart and redo them the way he wanted them to be. His knowledge for doing all of this he obtained when he was in the Navy in World War I. He spent 20 years in the Navy and then got out. We went to the Philippines and he started Philippine Airlines in 1939. And of course in 1941 the war started. He took these airplanes with his Navy knowledge and made them into low-level skip bombers where they could sink ships almost at will. It was a combination of what he did to the airplane and what he trained the people to do with the airplane after he converted them. So he won a lot of medals and was an active, he flew over 200 missions during the war, was shot down 4 times, got 9 Purple Hearts, and a bunch of other stuff. But I think what you're more interested in is what happened to us in the prison camp. When the war started, of course, we weren't ready for it. The American people were not ready for it. And it came as a big surprise to some. This is me when I was 11 years old. That's my brother, he was 13. This is me when I got out of the prison camp at 14. And this is the prison camp. 4,000 of us were jammed into that little place. for 3 years. And you may think that you've got it hard now, where you're living and how you're living, but you ought to try that for 3 years sometime. Get an idea of what hell is really like. Because we in the prison were non-entities as far as the Japanese were concerned. We were just a face and a number. And of course, we all had to work. Everybody in the camp had a work detail. I worked in the garden, and we had 2 meals a day. In the morning, we were fed a thing called lugao, which was a rice powder that was cooked in water, sort of like cream of wheat. Only one difference was if you let it sit too long, it became glue. So you had to eat it pretty quick. And then in the afternoon, in the evening, we had a little dipper of rice. The rest of the time, we had to fend for ourselves. Now, fending for yourself causes you to eat all kinds of strange things. For example, in the rainy season, you guys have you have fire ants here. All right, we had an ant similar to a fire ant, a big red ant, and when the rains would come and the grounds would flood, because it flooded every year in this prison camp, the ants would float to the top. And did you think so?
Yes.
Yeah. It had to land and fight a ground war in Japan on the home islands with our Marines and our Army. We probably would have lost 1.5 million to 2 million men. Okay? Those 2 bombs put the Quietus to it. The Emperor surrendered. Now, the Emperor was being told that we had many, many more of these bombs. In truth, we only had one more bomb left. But we had been told, he had been told that we had many, many more of these, and that we were going to just cover Japan like we covered them with our incendiary bombs from the B-29s, which basically, they had burned down a lot of Japan anyway, because they had already come in with the incendiary bombs and just wiped them out. So the Emperor, he gave up, surrendered. And that was the end of World War II.
We got about 10 minutes.
Hmm?
We have 10 minutes.
Okay. Now, do you guys want to ask any questions of this old man? Okay. What's next?